So for the last like 2 months, my camera is like sitting on this little art. I think this is Jenna's like Cricut.
Is it Cricut or Cry Cut?
It's Cricut, but it should be Cry Cut. Like that's how it looks, but it is Cricut.
Okay.
We called it Cry Cut for a minute, and someone that I used to work with was like, are you stupid? Maybe.
I saw something. It's if somebody mispronounces a word, it's because they've probably only ever read the word like in a book or something. Did I tell you about that one time that I mispronounced compilation?
Hey, what did you say? Compilation?
So the only time I've ever read this word, and I don't hear people say it often enough, or maybe I thought it was two different things, is in porn, compilations.
Sure. Yeah.
But a lot of times when it's in porn, it's CUMPILATION.
Like compilation?
Compilation. So I said it at a work thing. And I got this look.
Everyone
you mean compilation? And I said, oh, naturally, duh. Yeah, sorry.
Do you ever like mispronounce a word and then someone corrects you and you're like, that's what I said, even though you know? Is that a form of, I guess that is gaslighting?
Sure is. I love gaslighting.
I have beef with, I've been seeing a lot of fucking, if your spouse watches porn, they're sick. They're cheating on you. Okay, look, sure, if you are spending, you have no job, you have no social life, you're taking time away from your wife and kids or husband or whatever because you're just watching porn all the time and cranking your hog.
That's a problem.
Sure, that's a problem. But watching porn I don't see anything wrong with it, but holy God, the people that are against it are fucking against it.
Okay, well then they don't have to watch porn. I think they are in the vast minority.
Most dudes watch porn. Close your eyes and try to jerk off.
Oh, to completion?
With no visualizations. It's really tough.
Like right now?
Yeah. No, I mean, close your eyes and do it. I wasn't asking.
It wasn't a request.
We have been nonstop just fucking, like, I feel like we've just been go, go, go over the last month, maybe. It's been busy. Mm-hmm. And even though we'll get like 4, 5, 6 days off, then I feel like then it's just like all kind of compacted in.
Mm-hmm. And then there's real life stuff too.
And then there's real life. Yeah, you and I both have lives outside of this. Or do we? Yes, we do. We have
I like to think that I have a life. My kids would tell me to get a life otherwise, but
your social life, I feel like, is more active than mine. But I feel like, yeah, both of our lives are very busy. So this week, we're just going to kind of take a step back and re-air an episode that we haven't done on our show yet. I think it was like the end of 2024 around Christmas. We shot an episode with Rena over at Better Call Daddy. I think it was December, right? January.
Jeez, that was a while ago.
It was a while ago. I was like watching it. I was like, I have my Christmas sweater.
Well, there you go. That's December.
Yeah. So we're gonna re-air that, and
and that's the episode this week.
So enjoy it.
I want to know all about Eric and Greg and what is it like to grow up in Delaware?
Born and raised here. For me, it's really all I know. Delaware is so small. We have 3 counties and that's it. And you can get from the most southern point to the most northern point in 2 hours?
If you know a guy who could, I could do it in 1.
I don't know if you've ever been to Delaware.
It's usually a drive-through state for a lot of people. We have a stint of 95 that runs through Delaware. So people, maybe they say, oh, I've been to that rest stop. And that's pretty much it.
That's all they know about the place or the rest stops?
Kinda, yeah.
Delaware is, okay, we have tax-free shopping. a lot of people will come from New York. They'll come from Philly, DC, because we're touching really all of them. But, and they'll go, and our Apple store is one of the busiest Apple stores, I want to say on the East Coast, because it's tax free. So people come, they get to we talked about this actually a few episodes ago, and people will line up, they'll come from New York and they'll spend thousands of dollars and then bring those devices back with them because you're not paying sales tax. So for me, when I leave the state, it's really foreign when if I see $59.99, I'm used to paying $59.99. When you're like, it's actually $67.98, throws me off. I don't know how you live.
Delaware is also one of those places. If from us being from here, people either love it and never leave, or they desperately want to get out.
So you guys love it?
Oh yeah, I love it.
I do too. And
don't hesitate, Greg. You'd love it. You're not going anywhere.
So when I was in college, it was always I'm gonna graduate. And we're going to move and we're going to explore. But then there's a lot of good here. Delaware does have a very high cancer rate because there are a lot of, there's a refinery that kind of just.
There's DuPont is here. So I reckon we get the forever chemicals.
But at the end of the day, there are a lot of career opportunities. And even if you want to go somewhere else, you can hop a train and be in Philly in 40 minutes. So there are options, but I don't see myself moving anytime soon. Eric, I don't know about you.
I can't afford to move.
Yeah.
I'm locked in at that affordable interest rate.
Yeah, and I think too, for us, we've found our, I want to say, careers, and then we started this podcast. So it would be silly, I think, for us to look elsewhere, at least now.
My last favorite thing about Delaware is anytime you're on the internet and you see something about Delaware, any Delawarean will light up, and it's the biggest deal. Every single one of the Delawareans that goes in sees it and goes, Delaware, I know exactly where that is. Or it's usually like, man murdered in Wilmington, or there's a traffic accident or something. But you know what? I don't care. The news mentioned Delaware.
Delaware, so we have Wilmington, and Wilmington has a very high crime rate. And Wilmington's kind of split. There's northern Wilmington, and the homes are nicer. And then you have the city, and the crime rate's high. You don't really want to try. And it used to be a lot better, but now it's one of those places where you just really don't go because there is such a high murder rate and crime rate. And it's unfortunate. Delaware has a lot of those areas. Delaware is so weird. We have really just rich areas and then just extremely poor areas. And it's one of those things where it's just how the state is.
I think everywhere has that.
Yep.
Except we're so small that if it's densely populated in one area, for that reason, it's so much more impactful to the overall state's percentages. What's that called?
Per capita.
The violence per capita is so high because we're such a small state, I think. But I don't know how Connecticut gets away with it, right? No. What's the smallest state?
I think
Rhode Island.
Yeah, I think Rhode Island is smaller than us.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And
they must just be really nice all over.
This is all I know. Rena, you're in Texas, right?
I'm in Texas, yeah.
Okay, all right. So Texas is significantly bigger.
That's a pretty big state, right?
It feels like another country.
So
I've heard that described that way, yeah.
We were actually going to take a trip out there years ago. My wife was pregnant, and I had 2 free tickets to go pretty much wherever within 50 states. And Eric and I ended up flying to California, and Jenna just stayed back. But
you guys travel together too?
We traveled together, and this was before our podcast was even really an idea. And it was one of those things where we were like, let's go to California. And we did it. And it was
an experience.
It was an experience.
Tell me about Cali.
California has...
this guy booked... We went for, I don't know, I forget exactly what it was. It was 5 years ago now. Jeez, Greg, it was 5 years ago. It was 2019.
2019. Jeez. COVID was
pre-pandemic.
Pre-pandemic. COVID was
just about to happen.
Yeah.
And so say we went for 4 nights. He booked 3 hotel nights. And there was something weird where the flight got in at the very end of the day, but the time change made it so that he thought that he booked the hotel room for that night, but we were technically homeless for.
We were homeless for a night in.
I'll call it 20. Call it 20 minutes. Oh my God, we were in the hood too.
So we stayed.
I was going to say, did you go to Venice Beach?
Oh, we did.
We did eventually,
and we could have just stayed there overnight because holy shit!
Oh my God, we actually could have been super homeless in Venice Beach.
Yeah.
I think everybody is homeless in Venice Beach.
We had a plan when we went. So it was like, all right, we want to do Universal or Disneyland. We want to do the pier, the Santa Monica Pier.
Oh, no, Santa Monica Pier.
Yep,
See, I've
Santa
lived in
Monica
Chicago, too.
Okay, yeah. So we wanted to do the Santa Monica Pier, and we wanted to do Venice Beach. Like, that was and In-N-Out, right? We don't have In-N-Out here.
And Hollywood.
We
wanted to do
right.
the Boulevard, yeah. We checked all those boxes.
We
Nice.
did, but it turns out Hollywood is just fucking New York City.
Oh, it's warm New York City, for sure.
It's warm New York City.
Yeah. They got the characters on the side, like pestering you for pictures. Once you tip me for this, let me get your picture taken.
The one thing that they had out there that wasn't legal in Delaware at that time was marijuana.
It sure was. You DoorDashed.
So they have an equivalent service of DoorDash for weed. And we were sitting out eating dinner, and this dude rolls up with this secured zipped bag. And he said, "Are you Greg? Let me see your ID." I gave him my ID, and he gave me just a pack of the cigga-weed. It was
the pre-rolled,
marijuana. Dog marijuana. And you could they said, smoke it wherever. Yeah, wow. It was just not inside. It wasn't like, don't do it inside or in front of police officers.
Yeah, and you weren't supposed to just do it outside, but no one was going to holler at you.
And it was one of those things where I got to dabble. That was the first time in not marijuana, but legalized or decriminalized, I guess is probably the most appropriate term. Maybe.
But you got roasted. I was not smoking at that time, so I was just there to bear witness. And
he got it all to himself.
He sure did. And Greg is the type of person to indulge. So
when I go for something, I go for something. And
so he went all in, and you freaked yourself out.
I did.
And
there is the being too high is definitely a thing. And I was there. But I'll tell you what, I feel like when we were there, I don't want to say like we started to get ideas, but we still talk about our trip to California pretty regularly and throughout our podcasting journey. I feel like that does come up a decent bit. We always make the joke when we get ramen. Well, we've had ramen from coast to coast, and we went to one spot in California.
Sure. But technically, it was on the West Coast, and I've had it on the East Coast as well. So we've had it from coast to coast. Do we need to go to one place in like the middle of the country to get ramen too, or have we?
I don't know. Eric and I like to make jokes, and sometimes people laugh, and then other times they look at us like we have three heads. But it's one of those things where it's who we are. It's who we are.
Oh my God, that's great. So now looking back at LA, what are the things that stick out from that trip? The weed, the Hollywood stars?
I think for me, the Hollywood stars were cool. But I think I don't know what I was expecting. I hate New York City, and people probably are going to feel some sort of way, but I've always hated New York City. And so Hollywood was just that. So it was one of those things where they have a lot of tattoo shops like right there on the Hollywood Boulevard. And I've never had so many people offer me like $25 tattoos as I did when we took that trip. And it was one of those things where it was like, no, I'm way good. I don't. And then I'm kicking myself. So there is a shop that has like the lowest score. And this guy went and got tattooed there, and it was horrible. But we were there, Eric. And
we could have done it.
We could have done it. We could have
got matching tattoos. What would we have gotten? Have we thought about that?
I don't know. I'll tell you what, though. The cost out there is ridiculous.
If you were going to get matching tattoos, the time was then.
The time was then because those were the cheapest thing. I said, hey, the cost for everything except for
maybe I'll take my
tattoos.
husband there, and that's where we'll do it.
If you want to get some cheap tattoos, now you may get hepatitis, HIV, but
propositioned after.
But it was one of those things where would I go back? Yeah, but I think I would do it differently.
Same. Yeah. So we stayed. How about this? I'll say one more thing about where we stayed. It wasn't in Inglewood. But it was, we didn't know this. We had time to kill for a day. It was actually Greg's hungover day.
You're like, it wasn't Compton. Yeah.
Right, exactly. But we said, hey, let's go to In-N-Out. The lifts were insanely priced. So we said, hey, let's just walk. It's not that far. And we have a day. So we walked through and we were like, this
It's probably
place is
faster
kinda,
than traffic. Yeah.
it really wasn't bad. But so we walked there and we were like, the whole walk there, we were, this okay? It was still daytime out. But by the time we were done, it started to get dark. So we said, you know what? Best to just Uber Lyft back. And the Lyft driver, when he picked us up, he said, oh, how was your ride over here? We said, oh, we walked. And he turned around and he looked at us and he said, yo, I live in Inglewood and I wouldn't walk through this neighborhood. What are you doing? Don't do that ever again. If I was going to stay there again, I would have stayed like down by the beach somehow, so that we because that's where most of the stuff was.
Santa Monica.
By Venice Beach.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's where we screwed up. But I'll tell you what, the coolest thing, we got to see SoFi Stadium being built.
Yeah. I say that every time I see a game that being played there.
And it was at the time, it was crazy because they were like, this stadium, the Rams are coming, because I think they were still the St. Louis Rams at that point. I don't know if they were back to being in California and the Chargers. So two teams are going to play in this massive stadium. And it was cool. And it was right next to a Target. It's always weird to me how they set these stadiums up. In Delaware, we obviously don't have a team. If you're in Delaware, you have to like the Eagles.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I was going to say, Eric always has his Eagles hat on. That's like part of your all's brand.
Yep. I have the backwards cap. He has the forwards cap.
Yep. I was going to wear my backwards cap today, but I didn't want to throw. I couldn't do it. But yeah, so in Delaware, we don't have a stadium. You get the Eagles because apparently Philly is the closest sports team that we have. But yeah, I think it's one of those things where I don't think I would say it was life-changing by any means. I had a good time. There were memorable moments. If I could have gone somewhere else, yeah, maybe.
We got to go for a trip out of the country, right?
Yeah, so we just talked to shout out Adam Wedd, who he works over at Abbey Road Studios. And so that's, I think, our next stop is going out there to see that and meet with him. I need to get a passport first, though.
You do need a passport.
I can't go anywhere without that.
In the meantime,
update mine too.
Right?
They do it now so that it's ready. And when you want to go on a trip, it does
take
take
time, right? You can't just get it. And
Greg, are you coming with me to Chicago? I'm going for a work trip, but
I don't know. I've been to Chicago before.
Oh, have you? I've never been.
I have.
I'm going in freaking January. Is it cold there? I've heard it's a little chilly.
Very.
I'm not excited for that part.
We go out, not quite Chicago, but like Belleville, where Jenna's from, and it's cool, man. There's some cool things out there. The biggest thing is they have some interesting pizza out there, and they use what's called Provel cheese, which is like a mixture of like Parmesan, I think, like mozzarella, cheddar.
I've heard you talk about that before.
It's good, man. And the pizza is circle, but they cut it into squares. It's super thin crust, almost like a graham cracker. I guess they call it, or a cracker. I'm sorry, not a graham cracker, just a regular. And they cut it into square pieces.
Okay, because I thought it was only deep dish. I thought that was the only type of pizza that they have.
And what makes
Chicago is definitely
and what
deep
makes
dish.
it deep dish? The sauce is on top.
Oh yeah, or it looks like a pie,
or does it look like a pie? I don't know.
Yeah,
what makes
deep
it
dish is thick.
Mm-hmm.
It's thick crust.
So I think it's safe to say, is thin crust better than thick crust?
I think
I don't like my pizza done.
I don't either.
Then I don't think that you would prefer.
I prefer my pizza
dish.
cooked. Right? You're gonna make a lot of people angry.
That's one of those polarizing things. Like some people, you're never going to make everybody happy by picking a favorite pizza.
No.
I'm very much in the boat that, hey, I can go get Domino's pizza. Oh, I love me some Domino's pizza. But there's people that are, pizza snobs. They say chain pizza is trash. It still is dough, sauce, cheese, maybe some seasonings. It's still, which is such a good combination. It's really difficult to mess pizza up.
I think pineapple is polarizing.
Sure is. I like being polarizing, and I love pineapple on my pizza. It's so good.
Does pineapple have to have a ham partner on pizza to work?
It needs the salty with the sweet, for sure.
I think for me, honestly, like I'm cool. Domino's is fine. Papa John's is fine. I think you have to know what you're getting. Like with anything in life, right? When I go to McDonald's, I know what I'm probably going to get. 9 times out of 10.
You get 2 fish fillet sandwiches with extra tartar sauce.
So
that's what you get every single time. It's
right
a
now,
lot of fish.
The McRib is back.
Oh yeah, that's right. We have to go.
So the McRib is back. So there's that. But yeah, I think it's one of those things where Domino's is fine, Papa John's is fine. It's just a matter of if you're bougie or not.
Setting expectations.
Yes. That's
you
the
have to
moral
set
of
expectations for your pizza consumption.
I was actually driving by a Papa John's today, and there we were talking about stores like businesses closing this year, and there was a Big Lots. So I guess Big Lots is going under again. I feel like they're always going out of business. We were talking about that, but Party City, it's not a good year to be a business owner. I feel like I don't know.
I just interviewed today for the first time in 5 years. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Actually, I feel like it's even good practice to do that, even if you don't want to necessarily go back to work. I looked at it like that. I was like, I've interviewed over 400 people. And even though I've been on maybe a quarter of the number of podcasts, it's good to update your resume. It's good to practice interviewing for jobs you might want. And hey, you might actually get it.
I love interviewing. I think so. Eric and I, we don't talk about where we work just because we don't.
I like to keep it separate.
We like to keep it separate. What we do is, I would say, important in Delaware, but we just keep that part of our life separate. And that was always our goal going into it. But we have programs where individuals go and they do those mock interviews to get that skill. And it's one of those things where I think is important, especially because interviewing now is so different than it was even 10 years ago, where they would give you the generic, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I got that question.
Did you?
Yes, they were like, so I did it to him first though, because he actually asked me, do you have any questions for me? So I was like, I know he's going to do that to me, so I'll do it to him first. Let me see how he answers that.
You hit him with the Uno reverse card before he could do it to you.
But
Head
first
just
I was
explodes.
like, what inspired you to become a financial advisor? Because I wanted to know how he got into that field, which was great because after he told me about himself, I feel like he became more comfortable even in talking to me. So it was so nice for me to actually get to ask him a question before I had to ramble on about myself. I was like, let's see what his path was and how I can find some common ground to the path that he's led.
And I feel like, too, if you're going to go and work for somebody or with somebody, I want to make sure we're on the same page. I always ask my go-to, do you have any other questions? I always ask, what keeps you up at night?
Oh, that's a good one.
If you bring me in, what can I do to help alleviate a problem that you have? And they always give me whatever, but that is my question. That's my go-to. If I don't have that, I have nothing.
What keeps you up at night, Greg?
See, it's a tough one.
The Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, the Jags. I try to be very low stress in my life. I'll tell you that the most stressful part of my life now is the podcast. I think, to be 100% transparent, is this. We work 40 to 50 hours a week, and then I spend probably another 6 hours a day doing podcast stuff. And so I think that is my biggest thing. And Eric can really attest to that. I have to really lean on him for a lot of that shit, because if not, I'll go fucking crazy.
That's totally your personality, though.
Yeah.
I think, like we said, when you have a thing, you go all in.
I like to do something, and I feel like I've gotten better at when we first started. Let's take a step back to how Daddies the Podcast started, right?
Yeah.
So 5 years ago, 6 years ago,
Sure.
I was on Facebook, as we all do, and someone posted a GoFundMe. They were looking for a supercomputer that they wanted the public to fund. She was this very attractive individual, and I think she ended up getting $2,000. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. Hey, Eric, let's see if people will fund us to go eat fast food on camera.
Mm-hmm.
Dumb idea, but let's make it transparent that we're both working. People don't feel like it's some sort of weird money grab. We weren't in it for that. So we started going live on Facebook, and we were just eating a S ton of fast food. And we did that for 2-3 months, and
It was.
people were throwing money at us. We were
I couldn't
getting
believe it.
our meals were funded that entire journey.
Like, boom, here's $50. Oh, here's $10. Here's $12. And we would go and eat sometimes multiple meals and stream them like in one day, like massive meals, almost like mukbangs were a thing.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're as popular as they are now. And we were doing it right there in the car.
And the problem is, though, you eat enough fast food, you almost die.
Yeah, what's that? The man versus food guy. He had to take a step back from doing those.
What was the guy who
competitions.
ate McDonald's for a year? He did die.
Oh, Morgan Spurlock.
Morgan Spurlock. He did die.
He died. Yeah.
He was like in
that?
his 50s.
He was young. He was young.
Boy.
Yeah. And
Supersize Me. That's the
Supersize
name.
Yeah,
Me.
thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Because I think when the movie came out, supersizing was still a thing, right? You could
Yeah,
remember
that was
getting
the
those
thing.
fries supersized.
His thing was if they asked him if he wanted to supersize it, he had to
do it.
say yes,
Yep.
and he had to eat it all.
But honestly, for us, Eric put on 45 pounds.
Yeah.
I would too.
It was brutal. And I ended up sick. I ended up in the hospital.
Oh my God, no.
And so then we were like, all right, maybe let's not do this anymore. And then we stepped away from the spotlight for 5 years.
But people would still ask.
But people
they
would still
say,
ask.
"Oh, you got to go live again and order your food." It was not hundreds of people or anything like that,
Sure.
but people that we know loved it, and then the answer was we knew that we didn't want to do that anymore because we didn't want to be like fat again. We didn't want to have that unhealthy lifestyle fixed into whatever we were doing. And somebody mentioned,
You're like, sponsor my CrossFit.
go live and work out for you. Yeah.
We were like, what if we could do something? And Eric and I have very, I want to say, dark and bizarre senses of humor. And we're just
Sure.
we're just who we are, right? But people are always like, why don't you start a podcast? I feel like that's start a podcast. But we were like, all right, fuck it. Let's actually do it. Let's figure out how to do it. So we spent, I guess it was around this time last year, we spent a week just going through YouTube, figuring out what we needed, figuring out how the recording was going to look, how to record into a computer. I had this old shitty Mac at the time that I got in grad school. And so it was slow, but we're like, let's figure out what we need to do. So we figured out how to do that. We were audio only when we first started. And for anyone listening, if you go back and listen to our very first 5-6 episodes, it's brutal. I apologize in advance. We went through this phase where every episode was one topic. And we
didn't we do snack reviews?
The thing is, though, when you don't have video, because we weren't doing video at that time, we were just like, oh yeah, we're eating this sour candy.
Oh, it has notes of sour.
And we did that for a good fucking 2 months. We're like, why isn't no one's like really listening? We're not really getting any engagement. And they were like, all right, let's take a step back. This is stupid in a way. And let's add the video element and let's just start talking about things that we like, right? Let's be true to who we are versus this week we're talking about soap. Let's work on us. So we did that. And then we were like, fuck it. Let's reach out to people and see if we can get some guests that also want to talk about life. And our biggest thing was always, and it still is, you have Eric and he's a famous musician, but there's someone behind that musician. Who is Eric on the outside, right? What is your why? Who are you? And so I feel like that really worked out. And then we got a lot of no responses when we reached out to people and a lot of not interested, which is fine. Perfectly fine, whatever. But then we started to get yeses. And I think that was really inspiring because then it was like, hey, some people are reading these messages and they actually want to come on. And I think the first big person that we got was Willie.
Yes. Tell that story. My dad's going to love that.
So we had a local comedian on who's Eric's buddy, and he was like, whatever happened to William Hung? You should have him on. So while we were interviewing, I was sending William Hung a message on Instagram. And I think within an hour, he said, okay, here's my email. Let's make it happen. And I texted Eric.
Our jaws hit the floor.
And then So he said yes. He came on, and William Hung has a really interesting story. I encourage everyone to go back. It's a very short episode. It's one of our shorter ones, but his story is fascinating. Even if you take out the whole American Idol thing, he works for the sheriff's department in like the accounting sector. Yes. So that was our first yes. And then ironically enough, like he said yes. And then musicians that we used to listen to started saying yes. And then we got Cartoon Connect, Brandon Reed said yes. And then we're like, oh shit. Then we got Jarrett from Bowling for Soup. So we started to get these people to say, yeah, sure. And then we were able to like work on the first interviews are always real fucking bad. You don't know how to talk. It's just challenging. But then we were able to use that, and I want to say get better at honing our craft.
It's all about practice.
Yep.
And those reps in.
Because we've also had really bad interviews.
Sure.
And so we've had to tweak how when people approach us to come on the show, we had to tweak how that looked to make sure that we were keeping I don't want to say safe, but we were saying yes to everybody. Everyone was like, hey, can I come on? And we were telling them yes. And we had this conversation with Jared from Bowling for Soup, the importance of just saying no to people. It's okay to say no.
Mm-hmm.
And especially I struggled with that because I'm like, but this will be it's like taking interviews, right? For jobs you don't really want, but it helps you along the way. But for us, I don't know.
You're like, what if I get the offer?
What do you do then? And so
just practicing.
Yes. So we've got.
What a bummer. Imagine interviewing the perfect candidate and they say, that wasn't for real. That was just a practice interview. I didn't actually want the job.
Psych.
It had been a while.
So it took us a while to get where we want to be. And we're still trying to figure our craft out. We've gotten the recording and the sound and the mixing down, but we want to get back to. So you can see right now, Eric and I are in different areas. We used to record together. When we did and I take back, we recorded video together too. We want to get back to doing it in the same room and figuring out how to bring guests in and do that. It's just the chemistry between us is fine over the screen, but together, I think there's a little bit.
I think it's more endearing to have in-person interviews. And I know that I personally enjoy watching multiple people in the same room having a discussion with each other rather than over a screen. Not that there's anything wrong with doing it over a screen, but there's something more intimate and you're more open, I think, when you're in the same room. And I also feel like it would be more fun. I always have a lot of fun doing interviews. I don't know. It's just something about the in-person.
It's a different vibe.
It is. But it's also challenging, right? Because we're in different parts of the country. Like Eric and I are in Delaware, you're in Texas. So obviously that aspect is probably going to stay the same, right? But we have a lot of people in Delaware that we do talk to as well. And like, all right, we can all get in the same room and have those conversations and just talk about. And a lot of people do think our name, Daddies the Podcast, like we only talk about dad stuff.
Well, that's not all that people think. Sometimes people think that we talk about some kinky stuff too.
Yes,
I've
right.
gotten that too.
Yes.
Oh my God, it was funny. This one executive reached out to me and honestly, he just wanted to talk about his book. And then I was like, is there anything you'd like to ask my dad? He was like, oh, you're not going to get me. I was like, no, my dad weighs in at the end of every episode.
No, my legitimate father.
Anything you'd like to ask my daddy?
We get that. We've gotten that a few times. Sometimes
I had some ladies say, if you would have called your show Better Call Dad, I'd come on. But the fact that you call him daddy is a no. I'm like, you sound like you have daddy issues.
And ours was just we got the name because originally we were going to be Dad Brothers, the podcast, but that was already taken.
I'm so upset about that. I love our name, but
sure, it's who we are now. But at the time, like we were going to be, I think we had the logo made and everything. And then we browsed it. Fucking taken. It was already taken, and it was like this like family-friendly Christian podcast, right? So I was like, all right, we're not going to. That's your thing. Clearly, you got to it first, so we're like, fuck it, let's go. Daddies the Podcast. Sat there, we looked. There are a lot of podcasts with the name Daddy. Caller Daddy.
It's a good keyword.
It's one of the biggest podcasts, but it's just a good keyword, and there's a lot of variations that you can do with it. But you do get the kinky people to where they think that you're kinky.
I just say, bring me all the daddies.
Yeah, right.
You just have to have a good,
I think that's what
response.
You said when we first started chatting. But I think it's one of those things where it really hasn't been an issue our name really hasn't turned a lot of people off, I feel like, coming on as guests. We do have some guests that we're working on, a lot of guests that we're working on bringing in 20. But it's just one of those things where we're just trying to grow who we are and what we talk about, and who we'll talk to. Pretty much, like, we don't just talk to, we went through this phase where we were talking to people in the same industry. So we would do like puppet people. And then we would randomly do 2 in a row, 3 in a row. And then we were doing soap makers, like artisan soap makers.
So my wife would listen. She listens every single week, and she says, "Hey, I like that episode," or "Hey, I didn't like that episode." So it was like our 3rd week doing soap, and she said, "Why are you guys like? I don't like this soap stuff." And I said, "These episodes must not be for you." But noted, I will keep that in mind. We probably won't then continue to talk to soap people, because at the end of the day, even though we do still want to talk about, hey, you might be a soap maker, but what else are you into? We want to know what makes them tick. What is their why? But then we still inevitably end up talking about and just a lot of the same things over and over again.
So we were talking to an individual, Daniel Rinaldi, who was the singer of a band that I grew up listening to, Bedlight for Blue Eyes. And so that's why I originally reached out to him. I said, "Hey, back in my high school days, my band played with yours. I would love to have you on." And "That's great. Here's what I'm doing now." And I don't know if he's still doing it, but I think so. He runs it's called Mental Town. And so it's this website where you go on and you hire you hire him essentially, but there are puppets that play different like emotions or things that children, or I guess adults, are dealing with, like anxiety, stress, depression. And these puppets, he creates a story, and this puppet talks to the person. So it's an individualized experience. So for us, it was like, oh shit. So there's more than, clearly you're not a singer anymore, like professionally, but you're also doing this other thing that's really cool. So we were finding those things out. We talked to Puyan of Scary Kid Scaring Kid, a band, once again, that I grew up listening to and I love. But he also worked on a show on FX, and he did the behind the scenes, and he, Eric, won a Grammy for that?
I think so.
Or not, whatever
And he was real into like virtual reality, gaming and stuff.
And so like finding and I think that's how we've been able to, I don't want to say convince, but get people to come on is, hey, we want to talk about who you are. And sure, we'll talk about the music stuff. Like, that's cool too. But let's talk about the other shit. And that's what has drawn, I think, people to coming on to the show. And I could be wrong, but
Greg, I'm always jealous of your musical history. Like when you were in middle school or high school, you listened to all these bands that are like, I don't want to say attainable, but all right. So in contrast, I listened to like rap music or pop music. So Britney Spears was unavailable for us to interview the other day, but that's who I listened to. It's Justin Timberlake. Yeah, that's my boy. He passed. He politely declined. But like all these people that you used to listen to, I don't have that. Snoop Dogg is doing everything, and you know what? I used to listen to a lot of Snoop Dogg. Maybe we could reach out to him.
The problem is too, some people want money, right? And some people want a lot of money to come on, and that's just something that Daddies the Podcast does not have.
No,
especially
I want to pay. I wouldn't want to pay anybody to come on our podcast anyway.
I don't know though.
I think ever.
Do you think that there is that common practice, Rena? You would probably know better than us. Paying like, all right, Joe Rogan.
I've seen a couple people that have larger audiences say that they're making a donation to charity, but I would not believe that.
I don't know. I feel like I don't invite people on with the expectation of getting something. Like, I don't have a musician on hope, can I also score like backstage passes? Or we had a band, A Place for Owls, come on, and behind me, I don't know if you can see it, but that's their vinyl. I bought that. And I said, I listened to their music, and I said, I really like it. Like, I bought that out of I didn't expect to get that from them. Naomi, Amish Inspiration, she sent me her book that's right behind me. So
I want to read that memoir. Wow. She has an incredible story.
Yes.
Now that's much kinkier than our podcast is.
That book is spicy.
From Amish to stripper. Wow.
Oh, yeah. I got the
from
sign.
Very buttoned up to very buttoned down.
Oh, yeah. She signed it for me and everything. But she didn't have to do that, nor did I ask her. She just said, what's your address? I'm going to send it. And her conversation was incredible. She had such an incredible story.
I loved your questions to her too. You were like, were there expectations to do any of those things?
And it's so fascinating. And for a while, I was getting a lot of ex-Amish individuals on my feed. And so I reached out to her first, and she responded and was like, yeah, absolutely, I'll come on. I'd love to talk. And she was in I think her old like bedroom or old house that she lived in when she was Amish. And like shit like that's cool, right? Like
Very cool.
Eric and I will sometimes sit there, we'll be at lunch and we're like, we're still growing, but look at what we've done in the last year and like how cool talking to people that we a year ago would have never even dreamed about. And now like getting to know these individuals and become, I don't say chummy, but becoming friendly with them and having these daily conversations. I talk to Naomi pretty regularly through, by the way, anyone who talks to us on Instagram, you are talking to me.
I don't do well with social media. I'm trash.
So social media is my thing. So if you're ever messaging us, I'm very active. I feel like sometimes I'm glued too much to my phone, but I'm always the one that's talking to you. If you want to get a hold of Eric, we
how
can make that happen.
Talking to all of these guests and getting their whys and evolving through your podcast has changed your whys. Do you find yourself continuing to think about that? Because I think in order to keep going as a podcaster and to get better as a podcaster, you have to think about that.
Yeah, for me, like when I go into any interview, I try to go in and research as much as possible, but I like to go in with the mindset, like the very empathetic to their story, but I don't act like I know like what that person's going through. I try to be empathetic, but if say my mom died and your mom died, right? Like, and I say, I know how you're feeling, but I don't, right? Like we both have been in similar situations possibly, but so I try to go into, I don't know if this is the same for Eric, but I just try to go in with just a open mind, and I just want to hear your story. I try not to interrupt the person talking. That's what I really like about Joe Rogan. Whenever I watch him, is just he lets the individual talk. I know sometimes when Eric and I get excited, we start talking over each other.
I think we're allowed to talk over each other.
Yeah, we talk over each other, but that's something that even I want to say in our earlier interviews we used to do that we got better at. So I think we like, I don't know, that's a tough one, honestly. I also we used to go in with scripted questions and we would send them to the person we were interviewing, and I feel like that also took away. We have kind of base questions, especially if it's something that we are super unfamiliar with. For example, when we had on Lullaby the Fear podcast, Eric and I.
That was a great episode.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow. I listened to the whole thing right before this. That was such a good one. I want to check her show out now.
Yeah,
like it was such a good episode.
I love her show. I do love her show.
And her situation is fascinating because the research that she puts into it is. And the fact that she does all of the recording on her phone.
I know. I was fascinated with her process.
Yeah. And it's fucked up because we always have people on and yeah, let's talk about your show. But like we were spending more time talking about like how the episodes are made. And like for us, Eric and I can turn out an episode. If we recorded an episode, I can have it mixed. And Irene, like I'll put a fuckload of time editing something, but I'll get it done within 24 hours. We can have an episode up and ready to go. But with hers, there's so much time and effort that goes into it. I think she said it takes a couple weeks sometimes.
She said, a perfect scenario to her was like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And I love it. It's like an art form to her, though. Mm-hmm. Like she's really invested in doing her research, and I respect that.
And she's also very encouraging, I feel, to individuals wanting to get into that sector. She even talked about just being empathetic but you should absolutely do it if you want to do it, but be empathetic to I think she said it's important to tell the victims' stories because just because some of those individuals they've died, like they're still people and they need to be remembered. And I think that was like such a powerful statement. Right, because sometimes you don't think about it. You watch these true, and you're just like, it is what it is. But they are people at the end of the day, and she does a really good job of capturing that essence of life, which was just a really interesting. And honestly, we found her, it's weird how everything has played out. Chris, Captain Cook's Foods. I don't know if he's based out of Eric, New York.
Sure.
And I think, New York. And we had him on, and he was like, hey, I was on this podcast, but or he had her on his or whatever. And that's how
he would do
got
voice
into-
work. He would do voice work for her. Yeah.
And that's how we got into it's crazy how one person leads.
We
to
might
another.
even be teasing future episodes with previous episodes. It's just always like a little nod towards the next one.
Yeah.
Right?
And sometimes we don't even know.
We've got a web, right?
Yep.
Or like a pin board where we have the yarn tied around and it's going over to this next person and then this guest ties to this guest.
But a perfect example is Jarrett. So we did a co-joint episode of the Rockstar Dad shows with Jarrett and Gary from Bowling for Soup. And so that episode aired, and then Adam Wed reached out and he was like, hey, I've been listening to your show. I love it. But we wouldn't have found him if we never did that episode. And his thing was, he sends me this music video, and right next to him is Ed Sheeran, right? So they recorded this video. The guitarist called out sick, so Ed Sheeran stepped in to play the guitarist in this music video. But we would have never met him if we never would have never have met any of these people if we never took the chance and just reached out and just attempted to talk to people. We would still be talking about candy and fucking video games every episode.
What do your kids think about you doing this?
So my kids are younger. So my daughter is 4 and my son is 2. So she knows, hey, daddy does a podcast. And I'll say, hey, we always typically do the podcast at night. It just works for our schedule. Typically anytime after 7 is like when we're recording. So it's always either they're going down and like for bed and then I do it, or it's, hey, daddy has to record. Sometimes we have to do morning episodes. So please don't come in this room. When the door is shut, don't come in, because that's just more editing, honestly. But Eric's kids are older.
Yeah, and so they have tablets, like I was saying, like I've got to give them more time. And I've heard them trying to go find clips on YouTube, and I'm like, nightmare. I don't want them to view the podcast or anything about the podcast specifically, because while we are daddies, it's not necessarily geared towards children in any way, shape, or form. But they like it. I think it's just a cool thing that we do. I suppose I could say that my kids enjoy knowing that their dad does a podcast.
Yeah, I think for us, I don't know, we're obviously still small, but it's cool that like people now are, at least in like Newcastle County where we live, like people know like who we are or what we're doing. We don't go out and get recognized, but we've gone to events before and they're like, oh, you're Daddies the Podcast. And that's who we are. But I think it's one of those things where my daughter knows, but she doesn't quite understand what it is.
You know what? Hold on. Because I hear famous people with their kids. I love hearing stories about how their kids don't give a fuck if their parents are famous.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Dad, I don't care if you're in movies. Go make me my lunch or something. Like there's no way you're that cool, Dad, Tom Cruise, or I don't know. Just name like whatever famous person with kids. Like they're still just their parents.
Well, right, because that's it. That's who you are. You're just our parents at the end of the day. And do you love me? Are you going to take care of me? You're right. That's all they care about.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's you can get them nice things and they appreciate that. But yeah, it's one of those things where I do find our episodes, my daughter she's going through the YouTube phase now, and she'll want to watch it on the big TV out in the living room. And there are like the Daddies, the podcast episodes that pop up in the clips. And Eric said, our show is inappropriate. It's not kid friendly. We try to be more tamed when we're doing our guest interviews, depending on who the person is. But we are not kid friendly in that regard. We're kid friendly people, but our episodes are not kid friendly.
Would you say that we try to match the person that we're interviewing? We try to match their freak.
Yeah,
is that
Rena,
about
do you ever find that? I wait until I hear you use profane language or to understand who you are before I start.
Letting loose.
Yes, I don't want to offend. I'm not here to offend.
Oh my God, that reminds me of I had a dominatrix on early on when I was trying to be like more shocking. And
sure.
And how was that?
She Actually, that episode did really well. But
Okay.
what was crazy is I think like her day job was like a nurse. And then
I believe that.
Always. Yeah, Eric, does that sound familiar?
My wife's a nurse, and I'll say between her and all of her nurse friends, I've never met a freakier crew of people. Like I think that nurses, I think honestly, nurses and teachers, I think are the kinkiest groups of people, and it's great because they're so unassuming. It's you know who
all that was getting ready to come out of
Yeah.
her mouth happened.
Right.
And by the end of it, I'm singing Sexual Healing with her.
I have to imagine librarians are also in that pot of shocking, what is it, undercover freaks?
I don't know. Like most librarians anymore, I feel like anytime I see one, they're just really old.
They might have been freaks like a long time ago.
Well, you know what? They still could be. Just
They
because
should.
you're old, you don't
That's
have
right.
to lose the freakiness.
That seems like a music video. Yeah. And then there was this other girl who she was a mental health worker during the day and a phone sex operator at night. And definitely some crossover. Like it's really just about being there for people and like listening to their drama.
Yeah. No,
but she had a really nice voice. Like
right.
Yeah.
And that's huge. That's everything. And so we try to match who's coming on, and sometimes it's more difficult. Eric and I are very religious individuals, so for us, it's always one of those things where, and not saying that we have an issue, like if you are, but we try to be very respectful of what we say if somebody is coming on that we
don't want to
be more
ruffle any
corporate
feathers.
for. Yeah.
Yes.
You can be on your best behavior if you have to.
Yes.
I had to do that today.
There you go. Yeah.
It was such good practice. I actually asked him, I was like, would it be okay if I still podcasted at night?
Sure. Right.
Because look, I understand compliance. Like I had a healthcare client. I understand that there are certain things in your marketing I won't be able to do. But is it cool if I still have a personal brand on the side? Like that honestly matters to me.
And that was like when we were starting this, that's why we don't mix work and this. People at work know we do this, but we don't talk about it on the show like where we work. And that, right, just because we do try to keep them separate. And
I might have to too. Yeah.
And I think that's common for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because most of us also, like, we still have to work as much as I don't want to, and I do eventually want this to be full time. Fortunately, $0 doesn't a roof over your head, right? It is what it is. But I do eventually want to get to that point where, okay, this can sustain our lives, right? How can we figure this out? But yeah, no, we don't mix them. We don't even really talk about this at work. Like we do our job and then I come home and we do this.
You said 6 hours a day.
I do.
I know you do a lot.
Yeah.
But when we're not doing that, we're playing video games.
Yeah. Yep. So then that's another 3-4 hours a night.
What video game?
We've been playing a lot of Call of Duty.
Mm-hmm.
Call of Duties really are the new zombies. It's just a way for me, at least, life is so stressful that video games is really the one time that I get to decompartmentalize and just be, and just focus on that. I don't have to worry about this or work. I just could do that in this dumb little...
Turn your brain off
Yep.
and just hang, just chill, decompress.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You guys play that together too?
Oh, yeah.
We will do that after this.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, we got to play. Are we going to play that new Marvel game?
I think so.
Marvel
See that, like,
Rivals?
we're going to play a game after this. And then we'll talk. But typically when we're gaming, we're talking about podcast stuff. A lot of times, like, we're like talking about new ideas or most of the time.
Things come up. We won't even necessarily be talking about podcast stuff, but we might talk about things that we'll then talk about on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to... It's almost, I hate to go into detail while we're playing games or while we're hanging out. I don't want to lose the magic, like talking about it. It's almost like wasting it, just talking about it, while we're doing that, while it's not being captured in a podcast. We should just start,
I feel that way. I totally get that with my dad because he'll sometimes want to call me right after he listens to the episode. I'm like, Dad, we got to record that. Don't talk to me about it.
Or we'll do like an intro. And we're like, fuck, we should have been recording that because that would have been a really good recorded intro. So we try to keep all of the juicy stuff so it's legitimate and it's honest, because scripted stuff just doesn't. We were doing a scripted like promo and it took Eric and I fucking hours because we recorded it and we're like, this is perfect. And my wife came in And she was like, that was horrible.
Yeah.
That looked, you didn't look sincere. You looked robotic. Do it again. And then we were like, all right, let's just loosen up and have fun with it. And that's when I feel like we do our best work, when we're just loosey.
Honestly, if you put a script in front of me or you ask me, I've had to do things like, all right, take 5 steps. Here's your mark. Not like an actual commercial or anything, and then say this. My brain turns off. As soon as like a camera gets pointed to me and I'm expected to do this thing very specifically, I can't do it.
Messed up on the intros too, where I have to do them 4 and 5 times. Greg knows. I'm like, this is embarrassing.
We would record or we would script out our intros and we would try to cater it to the topic. And then, so we did the scripted intros and then the titles had to be 2 words and each word had to start with the same letter. I don't know why we were doing this shit to ourselves.
You like alliteration?
Yes, it was bad. And we would read these scripts and then we went back and listened and holy hell it's super cringy. So we stopped doing that. And now we just introduce ourselves and just keep it simple.
Oh my God. Will you guys do a intro of yourselves that we can use for a promo? Or are you going to get tripped up?
I sure will.
Yeah. So Eric always says, what is it? I don't remember how to do it.
Oh,
I
God,
feel like that's
I absolutely cannot. There was a time where we took 2, because we were doing it pretty regularly.
Yep.
And then we recorded like 2 or 3 episodes in a row, all in the same week. So we took 2 or 3 weeks off of just recording, and we came back and he said, all right, do you want to do the intro? And I said, yeah, wait, what are words? What words do I put together to say this sentence? I don't know what I have to say at all.
And so for us, we stopped doing it, and then we did the Rockstar Dad show. And when Jarrett did it, it sounded he has a radio. You can tell like he's the singer Bowling for Soup. Like he's got the voice, right? But I was like, we should start doing it again. So then we just went back to what was it? Welcome to Daddies the Podcast. I think was what we ended up landing on.
Mm-hmm.
And then we try to like not say the guest's full name so that way they can introduce, because then I think it's redundant if we're like, hey, we're having Eric on. Hey, Eric, tell us about Eric.
Hi, I'm Eric.
People already know that, right? So we're trying to, but the older episodes, growth.
It's all about growth.
Yes.
Where we've come from and now where we've landed. And we're not done, because we're still going to change stuff around.
Yep.
Sure.
I guarantee you how Daddies the Podcast looks now will not be how it will look different at the end of 2025. And that's okay, right? I feel like that's solid.
I love it. Is there any questions you guys have for my dad?
Yes, actually I do. So I thought about it, and I actually thought about it before we even went into the episode. So what steps can podcasters take to ensure that they don't fall into complacency? And how can they consistently challenge themselves to keep their content fresh and engaging for their audience?
Wow.
I came prepared.
Yeah, that is a great question.
So I'm curious to see what he has to say. Because I feel like I know your dad a little bit now. I spent time editing those clips. So I feel like I'm intrigued now.
Yes, that is a great question. He'll love that. And I'm interested to hear what he has to say. What about you, Eric? Anything? Any daddy advice? No?
I got nothing.
Do you guys get advice from your all's dads? I am curious about that.
I do not. No, my dad lives in Florida, estranged.
Yeah, I feel like not really. It's one of those things where I'm way closer with my dad than Eric is with his. But I think it's one of those things where my daughter was born during the pandemic. So it was very much just Jenna and I versus with Isla versus the world, because we were like locked away for so long that we figured it out on our own for the most part. So I don't really I need to get better at going to people for advice, because I just don't. Typically Eric or my wife, like they're really the only 2 people that I trust enough to get that from. But no, I'm not good at getting advice from people.
I think it's awesome that you have such a close relationship with Eric, and that is the only kind of co-host to have, because it's really hard to honestly rely on somebody to put together something like this. Mm-hmm. A lot of times co-host relationships don't work because you can be really excited about it for a little bit, but it's a big commitment. And you guys travel together, you've become daddies together, you act like daddies together.
So that room that Eric is sitting in, My son was conceived in that bedroom.
It was.
Wow, you guys are close.
Eric was there for, no, I'm just kidding.
And I was sitting right here in this chair.
It was like the Handmaid's Tales. He was sitting on the other end.
Praying in the corner.
So when we were building our house, it was my wife, my daughter, and I, we lived in that room for 3.5, 4 months.
Was that 2 or
2 years ago?
Wow.
2022. And it was one of those things where when we lived with them, we didn't fight once, and we were expecting them to. It was just cool. It was perfectly fine. And I think it's one of those things where if I'm in my own way, Eric does a really good job of telling you to take a step back. Let's look at this tomorrow. You're doing too much right now. I think you're overloading yourself. And that to me is really good, because if not, I'll go down just this fucking rabbit hole. So he does a really nice job of kind of grounding. And then I feel like I do a good job of, I'm a musician, and for me, like, I take the sound aspect of it. Video is one thing. I like video, but like sound is really what I spend a lot of time working on. And I like everything to fall into place the right way. So I take every episode that we do and I fucking make sure that it's up to my standard. I'm not saying that Eric wouldn't have the...
Oh, I wouldn't. No,
you'd be like, that sounds fine.
Oh, I absolutely. Greg will he'll say, all right, now listen to this one. Okay, and now listen to this one. And honestly, to me, same thing. Like, it doesn't sound that different to me. I can't put my finger on what the difference is. I would absolutely put out a subpar product if it was.
I'm like, Greg, I'm like, can you add a frame? I can tell the difference.
Yeah. Greg's very much a perfectionist. I am very much I don't know what you would call a realist. Like, I'm just real with it. Do I want to put in this many more hours into improving it by 4%, 5%, whatever? I don't know. You try to put a metric to it. My answer is usually no. That juice ain't worth that squeeze, where Greg is very much so, perfectionist. So I will always put in my input, and he'll push back sometimes and say, it's got to be good. It's got to be like this. And I'll say, all right, I believe you. But I just feel bad, Greg, because I can't really help you with that. So it's just you doing those things. And it's just me going, yeah, sure. Daddy number 2 over here.
I very much have a system now where we record our episodes typically Monday night, and then we will game after and just take a step back while everything is exported to the computer. And then I will typically have the episode done before the next morning. Like, I will sit there and I will mix it. I have my plugins in place. I know what works, what doesn't, and I will mix it. And then I will have that episode done by the next day. Even when I was working on yours, like, I was like, all right, I have to do it. Even though I know, like, I didn't have to do it right then and there. Like, I wanted to do it. Like, I enjoy doing that. So for me, it's one of those things where I like things to sound a certain way. Do I have to? I don't know. Maybe not, but it's just...
There's a word for that. People that have the ear. Is it an audiophile? Where there's the sound is so important. Like, you should have probably 500 earphones, something that really pushes good quality sound out.
Yeah, I think like it's just
that's
one of those...
the 5 to 10 year plan.
Yes, eventually. We're still trying to pay back all the other debt that we've accumulated from the
Any
show,
other gear, since we're making wishes here, that you would like to add to your wish list?
So we were talking today. So we are going to obviously need... Our cameras now are fine. Like, I love the cameras we're using. However, in person, we're going to need significantly more. But cameras are also... A good camera is what? $1,000 probably, at least.
Yeah.
And you're talking multiple cameras.
You're like, I need 3 of those.
Need at least 3. You got to do the single shots and then the double both shot.
The 2 shot and the singles. Shot, yeah.
And then honestly, like, computer wise, like, I run everything into a MacBook Pro that I just bought. So this thing is badass. This is all that I need. Our lighting, I feel like we got that. Microphones, I feel like we've invested a ton of money into those. Mixing, like soft, like the actual mixers, like we're good there. I think it's just the camera aspect.
And more sweaters, like matching.
Oh, we could get matching Christmas sweaters, or just matching Daddy's sweater.
So I had this sweater planned for this episode. So I wore it to work today. I took it off when I got home so my kids didn't get snot all over it.
Mm-hmm. Your kids didn't snot on your sweater, but I could right now because you guys have made me laugh so much.
You've heard from my mom. Now, let's switch it over to Grandpa.
This is our first podcast in apartment 505.
All right.
What's even crazier is that the boys took a shower before the show, and I took a shower before the show, too. I joined right in,
Hey, I'm glad you put your clothes on.
and I put my clothes back on. No nudity in this scene. But you guys started off joking around. You started off feeling each other, where your voices all are heard, and it's almost like you guys were the three brothers. It didn't matter your sex. You know what I mean? Is that everybody's voice was equal in the room, where you all became buddies and chums together. And that's really the key to their success, in my opinion, is that they are not scripted. They're willing to listen to people's stories. And the irony is that he's looking for enlightenment from me. And the fact is, all I can do is give him affirmation that they're doing the right things. And what the right things are is to be natural, to be yourself, not to be where we're hinged upon the money or we're as a job necessarily, or fame and fortune, because none of that is what is the purpose of a pod. The purpose of a podcast is to be able to shed light in a positive way of the interactions that you're having with people. And that's what they're doing. If they want to know, does it ever get boring? It never gets boring. Does it ever get to be where you're complacent? Not if you're doing the right job. You're doing the right job and you're feeling it from the heart and you love it and you love communicating with people. That gasoline never runs out. That energy is always there. And the reason why Rena and Wayne are doing the Better Call Daddy podcast is not for riches, fame, and fortune, even though, as you would say, it would be nice if we could have that too. But we do it because we're trying to also communicate people's stories where we have a unabridged communication that's not dot plotted, where people can be part of our show, I will be part of your show as well, where they can be heard and be able to express themselves in a manner where we can understand each other a little bit better. And how does that ever get boring? It never gets boring.
Well, another thing too is, look, I've tried a couple different editors, and Greg is cutting together this episode by collaborating with other people, by doing live interviews, by switching up editors, by switching up your format, by adding music, by changing your graphics. I think too, that also keeps things interesting, right? You can do solo episodes, you can do
but
panels.
You're thinking outside the box. You're not limiting yourself to some type of script. I'm just saying it in a little different way. But that's exactly right. Live life to the fullest and do your very best to be a shining light.
And also don't be married to a format.
You have to be yourself. Smile, joke around.
Shoot the moon.
Shoot the moon. That's right. Shoot the moon. Okay? And the truth of the matter is, the reason why we all feel a lot better for this episode is because we're all clean and we feel good. Okay? It works. Okay? Because when you're not feeling good, you're not going to perform at your best, whether it's at a job or whether it's on any activity. And not take yourself too seriously. Okay? It's not the end of the world either way.
Have you ever been to Delaware?
The world's going to keep spinning whether we're here or not.
Have you ever been to Delaware?
I've been to Delaware, but mostly what these guys say. I just drive through it to get to Philly, to New York, or to Washington. But the truth of the matter is we have a very large customer in Delaware, where we do a lot of business now in Delaware. And it's very possible to be on my radar to actually do a trip to Delaware where it's for Delaware. So you have to keep an open mind about everything, because you never know where your next horizon is going to be, and it could land you anywhere.
It could land you on the Daddy Show.
And it could land you on the Daddy Show. But I love the camaraderie ship. It still reminds me of the story of Bruce Burrill and Jeff Madden and Kerry Lunn that even after they all quit at the same time, they all came to the factory around the same time. The funny part is that these guys all triple dated together. They went to school together. They played football together. They all were spinners together. They were all truck drivers together. And before they got their profit sharing, every time right around Christmas to New Year's, they would call me for 5 years in a row before they got their profit sharing, where we all partied on the phone and talked about what they were doing and how the shop was doing. But I know why they want to know how the shop was doing, to see if they could get paid early. But the fact is that they were inseparable. They grew up together and they did everything together. And loyalty, as my dad, was a big thing. So having camaraderie, having buddies, that's a wonderful element to have as part of your life. Not everybody has that. And when you have, it's almost like they're brothers, even though they're not brothers. Okay.
They wanted that in their title.
Yeah. And the truth of the matter is that I've worked hands-on with the people in my shop where we call each other buddy and brother all the time. And none of us are related, but we have that loyalty and that connection where we've got each other's back. And my dad got it when he was in the service. That's a very important element of shining light as well, is showing that you're really dedicated to what you do. Being dedicated, having a love for it, and being sincere about it, I think all that plays a part in it. But more importantly, it's not about you. It's about the show's guests and trying to hopefully shed some light and giving them an opportunity to let their voices get out. And the more that you let their voices get out, the more successful you are.